there's an awful lot of fog of diplomacy going on here, with very little concrete to grab onto, and in a market where China is seeking to, where the Chinese markets are seeking to get some clarity and hopefully understand how it is that this deal will continue to benefit Chinese markets. They're finding that very hard to grab onto indeed.
Hello and welcome to the Trump Report. I'm Louis Sykes. Today we are joined by Terry Haines, founder of Pangea Policy, which delivers award-winning macro policy and political forecasting. Terry, thank you very much for joining us again today.
Louis, it's a pleasure always. Thank you.
It's great to have you back on, Terry. Well, Trump has said his meeting with Xi Jinping has been amazing. Is this the big, beautiful deal he's been hoping for, or just a reprieve from the more scrappy economic policy we've been seeing in the last few months?
Well, I think what you've got here is the word is truce, and there will be there has been a truce. There will continue to be a truce for a period of time, maybe as long as a year, and then we'll have a series of truces, and that will last into the with luck will last into the future. Trump acknowledges that in so many words on his way back from the Far East, saying that he looks at it as some sort of a deal that that will get renegotiated next year and probably every year thereafter. So what markets were looking for and stoked themselves to try to get was some sort of binary. We're either going to have a deal that substantially lessens for a long period of time United States-China trade and geopolitical tensions, or we're not. And what I and probably others have been saying for quite a while is, if you set it up that way, you're going to be disappointed, because that's not what's going to go on here. Trade and tariffs are weapons in the broader geopolitical competition, as it's nicely put now. And that's going to maintain for a while. And as long as both sides want to wrangle around using trade and tariffs as one of the weapons in their competition, they'll do that. So markets have to get used to that state of play for quite a while. And, we as citizens all have to get used to that as well. This is not going to be a situation where we're negotiating out of a problem. This is a situation where we're trying to contain a crisis.
Indeed. I mean, how much of a break is it, this drop to the 47% tariffs that Trump has come down to? I mean, that is still presumably enough to disrupt markets from where they were this time last year.
Oh, sure. It continues to put a lot of pressure on China, regardless. And China's got a lot of weaknesses in its economy anyway. Many of we in the West are used to thinking of China as some sort of monolith, and a major factor in all of our lives economically, and that's true. But China has a lot of problems in its own economy. Whether you're looking at structural problems, cyclical problems, or problems caused by the mere fact of the political system and the weaknesses that flow from there. So. And China, Chinese markets did not react particularly positively to the aftermath of the Trump-Xi meeting. So that tells you a lot about the potential weakness and how Chinese markets also didn't get satisfaction out of this meeting.
Yeah. So what do we think the longer term impact will be on Chinese markets? Because there's been a lot of commentary, of course, on the impact on the US economy and US importers and exporters. But how does this look from a Chinese perspective?
I think it is very much a water treading exercise for China. The biggest problem with this meeting and its aftermath that is really twofold. One, we've talked about already, that markets shouldn't expect anything other than these sort of nebulous truces for periods. But markets also shouldn't expect clarity or a firm direction of travel on any U.S.-China issue, even when the heads of state meet. And kind of that's a new normal, I think, because what you've had in past years, past decades, whether it be U.S.-China or other major power meetings, is people expect. As with the G7, for example, they expect post-meeting communiques in which conclusions are reached, steps for the future are announced, and as to what will be taken. That's not really happening here. The very nebulousness of the post-meeting agreement and the fallout on both sides, where China can barely brief on what it was agreed to, and Trump's basically putting up his version of things on social media, means that there's an awful lot of fog of diplomacy going on here, with very little concrete to grab onto, and in a market where China is seeking to where the Chinese markets are seeking to get some clarity and hopefully understand how it is that this deal will continue to benefit Chinese markets. They're finding that very hard to grab onto. Indeed, probably about the best thing you can say for Chinese markets, I think, is that the expansion of U.S. interest in companies that are affiliated with companies that are already sanctioned. What I read somebody called kind of the blast radius of U.S. regulation in this area. Gets cut back a little bit. That probably helps Chinese companies a little bit in world markets. But beyond that, it's hard to point to a positive.
And it seems that the US is going to continue to restrict the sale of certain electronics to China as well.
Sure.
That's going to be, is that something that the Chinese are going to want to come back to quite quickly to try and unlock some of those exports from the US?
I think, well, look, in the abstract, I think they'd very much like to have as many chips and advanced chips and advanced tech from the United States as they can get their hands on, because not only have they been direct about that, but that fits the pattern of what they've wanted and how they've wanted it for the last 20 years or so. And they want those things just like they want all intellectual property, frankly, to appropriate, to copy, to steal as much as possible. And the United States tech industry, parts of it anyway, seem interested in helping that along, and concoct an argument that this is somehow good for the United States. I disagree with that quite a lot, but you've had the experience over the last 6 months where the United States offered some chips, some advanced chips, not top most advanced chips, but some pretty good chips to China. China seemed to be interested in taking them. Then, as soon as China actually got potential access to them, China turned around and accused the United States and the companies involved of backdoor national security violations and all the rest, and the chips never did get sold. I don't know what's different about the current situation than the situation that I described a few months ago. So I think what you're going to end up with is you may end up with some very limited chip sales to the United States, but otherwise, or from the United States to China. But otherwise, I don't think China gets kind of wholesale access through the United States, and they'll probably do what they always do, which is try to go through third parties to get them.
And are the agreements made today and over the last few weeks enough to help US exporters recover, especially those soybean farmers that have felt the brunt of this in the US?
I think the honest answer to that today, Louis, is I don't know. The reason why I say that is because there is an agreement that China will buy more soybeans from the United States, and China has not bought a single soybean from the United States this year. I think preferring South American markets to the U.S. markets. That's a pain point for United States agriculture. And one of the things the president brings back is assurance that the Chinese will buy more soybeans, but exactly how much more they're going to buy on what timetable and all the rest, I think is completely open right now. So, and subject to further negotiation. So, if I'm in the agriculture sector, I think I take very little concrete positives out of this. Although I'm glad for the sentiment and the priority from the president.
And what about rare earths coming out of China? I mean, this has been an issue that Donald Trump has been very engaged with, not just on trade with China, but with other places, not least Ukraine.
Sure. The rare earths. I am. My view is fairly pessimistic from a Western perspective on rare earths. That China will do anything differently than it already has been doing. The reason I say that is very simply that a lot of what happened overnight from the United States time anyway, a lot of what happened overnight is sort of a Groundhog Day from 6 months ago. The United States thought it had the China rare earths issue kind of sussed and put to bed, and turns out that wasn't the case at all. So we've tap danced through another 6 months, and what ends up happening is China gets some things out of saying that they're going to continue to supply rare earths. I don't see anything concrete here that will allow the United States or the Western governments to pry loose from the Chinese any more rare earths than they're already now getting, firstly. But secondly, as a result, what's happened in the last 6 months is, we've all not been sitting around waiting for the good graces of the Chinese on rare earths. The president and a variety of other Western countries have been aggressively going after rare earths anywhere else other than China that they can find them. And that includes not only the United States investing in its own rare earths capability, but you have a major United States-Australian agreement, for example. You've even got the United States-Ukrainian agreement on rare earths, which was much derided a few months ago, but now in the current circumstance, where everybody's much clearer on the need to put together a rare earth stockpile and regularized use outside of China, we're in a situation now where the getting them from anywhere that we can get them in the short to medium term not only provides Western industry with the ability to keep functioning, it also wears away whatever advantage the Chinese have temporarily.
And have we seen any signs in the sort of trade skirmish that's been going on this year, and in the agreement today, that Trump's idea that the US can use tariffs to kind of force China into a specific position, or damage the Chinese economy to the point that they have to come to the table, has that been demonstrated by Trump's actions this year? I mean, has China's economic growth been significantly impacted by the tariffs?
Well, I think it's been demonstrated. I think it's been demonstrated by China's behavior. China would rather not have to endure the pain of the tariffs. So that's you're getting validation of Trump's point through China's behavior to some extent. One of the big points that Trump and his Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent make and have made for some time is that high tariffs, of whether they be the current 40-odd% or a good deal higher, that high tariffs are over time unsustainable for China. The unsustainability point got brought up again by Trump and Bessent a couple of weeks ago. Markets missed the point by thinking, oh, they're talking about it's unsustainable for everyone. No, what they think is, regardless of what you or I might think, is that the high tariffs are unsustainable for China, and that's very much true. You have a situation where the Chinese economy is already not growing at the 6%, 7% that it was used to doing in the prior kind of the prior 20 years, and the Chinese economy is faltering for a lot of different reasons, both sort of structurally in how it's built, what its priorities are. Aging demographics, clunky regulation, all kinds of things. State control is obviously a problem, and their geopolitics exacerbate this problem as well, because geopolitically, what they're doing, not to put a fine point on it, is essentially preparing for a potential next war, whether it be a mere seizure of Taiwan or something hemispherically or globally more ambitious. They're building an army, navy, air force, just as fast as they do it, and this is a concern that that has geopolitical consequences, not just for China, because it directs more state resources towards the defense sector, and then makes it that much more difficult for its non-defense economy to recover. But it also has knock-on effects in the West, because what we've seen now is whether it be through rare earths or anything else, we've seen every decision in the United States economy taken from the geopolitical point of view, with the idea that, as Besant puts it, national security is economic security, and economic security is national security. And not only are we seeing in the United States and in the broader West and the NATO countries a ramp up of defense production, but we're also seeing in the United States incentives provided for domestic manufacturing, precisely to insulate supply chains from the kind of shocks that happened during and post COVID.
And after the US put sanctions on Russia's Lukoil and Rosneft, Chinese firms had announced they were cutting back purchases from Russia. Have we heard any more on the US attempt to sort of separate these two economic powers?
We have not, but my view of this all along has been that it is a mistake to think of Russia as a fundamentally independent country or a great power on its own. Russia at this point is, and has been for a few years now, is a client state of China. It is its economy is completely dependent on China, selling energy primarily to China for rubles and whatever currency they can get, and very little else. So what you have is a situation where China's pause is interesting, precisely because it is a pause. But the proof in the pudding here will be whether China uses that pause or extends that pause in ways that start putting pressure on Russia to do something different than they're already doing in Ukraine. I personally wouldn't bet on that. Geopolitically, China has not been helpful, whether it be in the Russian invasion of Ukraine, in the Middle East, where it is a funder and supporter of Iran and Iran's proxies, and the net effect of a lot of United States and Western actions, whether it be Gaza, whether it be Argentina, where China is the biggest trading partner of South America, whether it be with the United States, Australia, rare earth steel. I could keep listing things, but the net effect of a lot of these things is perceived by China as negative for them, both geopolitically and economically, and that's to me is one of the biggest reasons why you can't have a broader economic deal with the United States and China coming out of this meeting, because it's not in China's geopolitical interest to have one, frankly.
And Trump has also announced his deal with South Korea. How has that gone down in the US and on global markets?
Oh, I think it's gone down very well, and it's a great exemplar of great in the sense that it's the most recent exemplar of what Trump is trying to do diplomatically, frankly, I think to ring fence the Chinese geopolitically, not economically. China makes a big point out of saying, China's rise will be unstoppable, et cetera, and that's one of the standard lines. What the United States has said back to China, in essence, is we're happy to have you continue to be a large part of the world economy. We want you to continue to rise and expand. That's good for you. It's good for everyone. But geopolitically is another question. And what the United States is doing, I think, can be geopolitically can be summarized by saying, Trump is trying to create different sorts of alliances in which the not just the United States, but the other country involved, whether it be a formal ally like Japan and South Korea, whether it be a major unaligned power like Saudi Arabia or India, where those countries and the United States can be economically and geopolitically interdependent and kind of create an interdependence web such that China's geopolitical ambitions are effectively ring-fenced. South Korea is a perfectly good example of that. And if you look at touch points in Asia over the past month or two, you see a major South Korean agreement, which includes a lot of investment in the United States. You see a new Japanese prime minister that is would be pro-Western regardless, but is more unabashedly kind of pro-Western in a way that is negative for China's geopolitical interests. You see the Australian government coming out with the United States and doing the rare earth deal. These are all negatives, and then you have the prospect, I think, by the end of the calendar year, of a United States-India trade agreement that brings India a little bit more firmly on side as a major, one of the major unaligned countries. You also see it in South America, by the way, where Trump's initial teeth bearing on China's ringed ports around the Panama Canal was treated at the beginning of the year with a lot of derision. But what we've got here is you've got the prospect of regime change in Venezuela. You've got the United States putting pressure on Colombia to get rid of drug trafficking and come a little bit more firmly on side. And then, of course, you see the United States helping Milei and Argentina come to a much more free trade sort of posture, get rid of the old Peronist stance that has ruined that country economically, and that is also designed to all those actions together are designed to limit the influence of China in South America, where, as I say, they're already the South Americans' largest trading partner. So this is people that are looking at the U.S.-China agreement as something that ought to have knock-on effects and fix a lot of world problems. I think are looking at this exactly backwards. Both sides are engaged in their own 21st century version of the great game to try to amass economic and geopolitical spheres of influence, and their direct talks on direct trade issues are an aspect of that competition, but by no means even the top aspect of it.
We've also seen back in the US this week tariffs on Brazil voted down by the Republican-led Senate. Do you think Trump can still rely on his party to continue backing the tariff regime?
I think by and large, yes. There has been frustration with the administration about in the Congress, even with Republicans, about the cavalier way in which he does some of the tariffs, including the Brazilian ones. Brazil is an important trading partner of the United States. I think the Republican majority Senate is trying to send a not so subtle signal that that Trump needs to re-engage a little bit more constructively with the new Brazilian government, take what they can out of it instead of continuing to think that he can bring back the old government or muck around in Brazilian politics in the way that he seems to be interested in doing in, say, Venezuela or Colombia. But I don't. I think it's a mistake to think that the Brazil vote is a harbinger of some larger problem. And I should also say in this context that our Supreme Court will be hearing arguments next week on the specific whether Trump has the ability under a specific emergency powers law to impose tariffs that will get ballyhooed in the press, both in the United States, the UK, many other places, as some sort of a test of Trump's tariffs and whether or not, frankly, the United States is going to have to gather up the money and give it back. I think that misses the boat entirely. Trump has lots and lots of different tariffs authority. Those tariffs, regardless of the Supreme Court's decision, which I think is likelier than not to be favorable to Trump in a broad sense, I think what's going to end up happening is that the tariffs regime won't get significantly disrupted going forward.
So to finish, Terry, where does this leave the US economy? Has it been a strong year, and what should we look for in the year ahead, which is coming towards us in only a couple of months?
Well, it's one of the standard sayings always is that markets are not the economy. The equity markets have been very strong, and in part because they ignore geopolitical issues, geopolitical problems. By and large, but it's been very strong, and those who thought that tariffs were going to put the brakes on or even reverse growth in the United States economy have been proved wrong. So what you've got, fundamentally, and we shouldn't miss it, is that the old guard that institutionally one should be listening to about matters economic has been proved wrong on the most important matter in front of them this year. And that has frankly helped unleash things a little bit further. But at the same time, this remains a very fragile economy in a lot of ways. Markets tend to glom on to bright, shiny objects. A generation ago, tech, the internet was the bright, shiny object. There have been other bright, shiny objects. AI is now the bright, shiny object, and lots of people will talk about AI capability and the way forward as being the one thing that's driving the economy. All the rest that certainly has an outsized impact on markets. But there's a lot of fragility in the American economy. On fundamentals and on things like manufacturing, frankly, and there's going to be a transition period where those are going to have to get right-sized over the next several years. And one thing that will matter a lot is whether or not, as the right sizing and those bumps occur, as we bring manufacturing back home, a variety of other things happen, whether or not there's enough air cover from the broader economy and the bright shiny objects to continue to make things grow in the bigger sense. The American economy is also an outlier, and it's very important for both the European Union and very important for the United Kingdom to get their acts in order. And I'm not saying that they have to do it the way that the United States is doing it or prioritize it in the way the United States is doing. But it is very clear that as we go into an era of sustained geopolitical conflict, for as far as the eye can see, frankly, whether it be conflicts on the European soil, like in Ukraine, or whether it be more geopolitical, as with China, it's imperative on the United Kingdom and the European Union to begin to do whatever it can, as fast as it can, to get the growth engines moving again, regardless of party politics.
Terry Haines, founder of Pangea Policy, thank you very much for joining me today on the Trump Report.
Appreciate it, Louis. Thank you always.